Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and some new Pokemon TCG cards were just revealed, and I'm super excited to take a look at these today. These ones were actually teased a little bit before. Specifically, I actually made a video on it, I think it was 2 days ago, so really recently, about the return of trainers Pokemon, or I don't know if return is the quite right word, but we didn't see any in Mega Evolution, but we are seeing some new ones being printed here. We got some new Ends Pokemon and also a Mega Froslass line and some cards that go with it. I'll talk about the Mega Froslass stuff later. Going to start with the Ends Pokemon here. These are going to be in Mega Dream EX, which will release in Japan on the 28th of November, actually. So that's really soon. Releasing internationally on the 30th of January. So that is still pre-rotation, but not that long before rotation. And yeah, there's some pretty interesting cards here. As I said, we'll dive into the Ends Pokemon first. I guess I'll start with the Ends Zekrom. This is a card I talked about previously, and yeah, this card looks pretty cool. This one here it's obviously, it's an Ends Pokemon. It's kind of the counterbalance to Ends of Reshiram, I guess. And of course, works with the Ends or EX stack. I was hoping that we'd see some really interesting designs. I'm gonna be completely honest; these aren't like crazy in terms of really pushing design space or anything like that, but they are still pretty decent cards here. You have Shred for 3 colors, hitting through effects of attacks, doing 70 here, which is like useful in some situations. And Zoroark EX is a toolboxy deck, kind of. It feels like it wants to be a toolboxy deck at least. And yeah, hitting through effects or yeah, like walling abilities and attacks like and things like that. And that could be useful. It depends on the situation, but it is nice to have. And then you have this other attack here, Rampaging Thunder. It's expensive. It's Fire, Lightning, Lightning colorless. This is kind of like obviously Reshiram as well. Reshiram is for 4, it does 170, but this does more. It does 250. There is a downside, of course, saying that you can attack during your next turn, but this isn't too bad. Ends Zoroark EX is Darkness, so you could use Pekron EX, and there are various ways to retreat easier, Accelerate Energy, Move Energy, things like that. So overall, I feel like the downside is not that bad at all. It's not nothing, but doing an extra 80 damage is really nice. And Reshiram just hasn't really been quite powerful enough. And Zoroark EX is okay. I definitely say it's like in that okay range. You're kind of complementing it with other things like other darkness stuff in this list here and things like that. And you're not making too much use out of the actual end stuff because it's just not that amazing. But End Zekrom is a nice little piece here to do extra damage, quite simply. Just more damage. It's not that complicated. It's not absurdly good, but it's pretty good here. And I think gonna not necessarily replace Ends Reshiram, but like mostly replace Ends Reshiram, to be honest. Obviously 170 is worse, but there are times when not being able to attack next turn could be really bad. It's not that you can't use Rampaging Thunder, you can't attack at all. And then Shred is like meh. Powerful Rage on Ends Reshiram is useful though. So overall, a pretty decent card here. Then we have some other Ends Pokemon. We have this Ends Vanilluxe line. The Vanillite searches for 2 basics. The Vanilluxe is kind of generic here. It's actually quite bad. And then the Vanilluxe here. This one has 150 HP for 2 colorless. You can double the amount of damage counters on all of your opponent's Pokemon. This is pretty cool. This is the same as a Lunala we saw previously. Lunala from Pokemon Go, or not Pokemon Go, 150. No, I'm wrong set. Celebrations. It says it right here. Yeah, it's the same thing. You double the damage counters on all your opponent's Pokemon. This card didn't really see much play. I don't know if it was eligible for these city leagues. I don't remember when they or first started to be tracked on Limitless, but Lunala's like kind of cool, and like GLC specifically, it's pretty interesting. And it expands kind of cool and stuff like that. It's not an absurdly good card. Obviously, it is a stage 2 here, but it can theoretically output a lot of damage. Through damage counters. This is, I'm pretty sure, putting damage counters on Pokemon, so it will be stopped by the new stadium. Battle Cage, I believe is the name of it, but it's not the end of the world there. Overall, I think Ends Vanilluxe here is a pretty interesting card. Then you have another attack for Watercolors. Colors Blizzard, do 120 active, 10 to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Obviously, there's some synergy with Layered Snow here. Obviously, Blizzard isn't amazing as well, right? It's not that much damage, but it's a fun little attack. I do think it adds to the deck a little bit, or the card. I don't know what deck this is going to be played in. It could be played in a spread-based deck. Like I heard some people mention like Munkidori Froslass stuff. There you do have issues setting up a lot of different Pokemon and energies and stuff like that. I feel like that's not going to work super well. It is like kind of doable, but pretty awkward there in my opinion. The thing that stands out to me more is I don't know, like this as a main Pokemon, I wouldn't necessarily put Munkidori with it. Not because Munkidori is bad, but I don't think you're gonna rely on Munkidori all the time. Maybe something like Uxie or I don't know. Honestly, the options just aren't amazing for the fact that this is a stage two. It is like payable, but it's not like super easy. It's not one energy, one basic energy or anything like that. So, um, it's interesting here. Definitely a fun little card to watch out for, but also not amazing. But then there is another card here. This is a supporter card, Anthea and Concord. Concordia. Not actually sure who these characters are. I looked up like before this. Apparently they're like members of Team Plasma stuff. I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't familiar with these characters at all before this video. But regardless, this is a supporter that says during this turn, if your opponent's active is knocked out by damage from an attack of your one of your ends, click one, you take 3 extra prizes. However, there is a very, very big downside to it, which is you can only play this if you have End Starmantian, End Zoroark EX, End Zereshram, End Zekrom, End Klinklang, and End Vanilluxe in play. And that is really awkward, especially because like a lot of those cards aren't very good. End Vanilluxe is okay, as we were just looking at. And End Zekrom's like pretty decent. End Zereshram, End Zoroark EX is obviously pretty good. End Starmantian's okay, definitely not a bad card. And then End Klinklang. End Klinklang is pretty bad. It I don't even remember I think it's like a coin flip attack that's just like not very good. Yeah, you flip 3 coins, do 120 for each heads. I mean, it's not like the worst coin flip attack ever, but it's certainly not very good either. This card is really bad. It's a stage two. You need 2 stage twos, 2 stage ones, and 2 basics. The basics are relatively easy to get into play, though they're not free. The stage ones are not too bad, especially Ensor getting your board going. And then the stage twos are like pretty difficult. And generally with ends, you want to get a bunch of ends going in play, or you want a bunch of Enzoric EXs in play. Specifically, here you can't do that. You could theoretically expand your bench to like pull this off, but that's super awkward. Then you need even more Pokemon there. And then you don't even necessarily win if you play this. You like are in a good spot. Taking 3 extra prizes is obviously really good. If you knock out a 3 prizer, if you knock out a like a mega, or if you also no, I was gonna say if you end Starmania and snipe something, but no, that's actually enough. That'd be taking 2 knockouts. So it's only the active that you get the extra prizes from. So you'd only take 5 prizes there. So it's not even an instant win, and like in most situations, it's not even necessarily an instant win. If you've been like progressing in the game, it presumably will win you the game. But it can't be your only like thing you're focusing on. And if it's not the only thing you're focusing on, you're not setting it up. Even if it is, you're probably not setting it up. This card is really funny, but it seems really bad, unfortunately. Or maybe fortunately, this card would be kind of annoying if it was good. It's kind of like Briar, but like kicked up a lot. The upside theoretically is like way higher, but you're never going to get there. Briar is kind of specific. This is way more specific. Super niche. Unfortunately, super bad. Really, really funny. But yeah, there's no way to really get this to work at all. If it needed Vanillite and Clink and Zorua and like N-Star Maka, I think it would be like kind of okay. I don't think it would be super good, but if we needed 6 basics, it could be really funny. Or just like 6 differently named Ends Pokemon or something like that. But no, that's not what this is. This is super difficult to do. It is funny, but it is kind of bad. But then we have some really interesting stuff here that's probably going to be a little bit better. Not the other stuff is terrible, but it's not super impressive. But then we have this new Mega Froslass EX, also a 70 HP Snorunt. This is like cool. Currently there are only 6. Wait, is there one? Yeah, there's just one Snorunt in stand. No, there is 2. Okay, there was 3. Now there is 2. And they have 6 HP. They actually like don't really do anything different at all in like Marnie's, which is the deck. You'll see it in Marnie's comes down with Froslass. You could pair it with like something else with Monkey Dory and maybe be able to attack with it, in which case I guess this one would be a little better. But regardless, neither of them are particularly good. But this one is, yeah, I mean, it has 10 more HP, which is useful. It's not super interesting, but it is useful. But then there's Mega Froslass EX. This one's pretty interesting here. Absolute Snow for watercolors. Colors does 150 and puts your opponents active to sleep. This attack is actually pretty bad. Yeah, just like not that much damage. Asleep is okay, I guess, but it's certainly not that good. And then the energy is like kind of expensive. However, you obviously are a 3-pricer as well, so you need to keep that in mind. But you do have this interesting attack here, Rebellion for 1 water. It does 50 times the number of cards in your opponent's hand. This could be really powerful. And I guess I'll mention the other card revealed with it right now, which is also a pretty cool card, which is Frostmoth, which it can do for 2 water 90, and then move a water from this to one of your bench Pokemon, which is like not super good, but not the worst. But then Inviting Wing is once on your turn. If it's in the active, you can use this ability. Oh wait, it needs to be in the active. Okay. And then each player draws a card. This is kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie, when I first read this, I didn't realize it had to be in the active. It's not It's kind of sketchy, right? This is kind of the same as the Chandelure, except the Chandelure doesn't need to be in the active. This is each player draws a card each turn. A similar attack doing damage for cards in each player's hand. There's some funny things you could do. You could do this. I saw this weird mill deck. This deck looks super bad. I'm not gonna lie, but it looks really funny as well. You use Chandelure and Totodile. You like trap your opponent with Totodile. Use Chandelure to deck them out. Um, you can like use Heuristics Machinations to like make it so that you don't just like Iono their entire hand back into their deck, which means that you've essentially done nothing for the past a bunch of turns. So that's the thing here. But regardless, Chandelure is a funny card, but it's also pretty bad. Frostmoth is a similarly interesting card. It is like draw for you, but it's not super good draw for you. I mean, it's draw one if it's in the active. Then your opponent also draws a card. Generally, you don't really get anything out of your opponent drawing a card. Here, you can do more damage with the Mega Froslass EX. I think the main way you want to do this might just be with Iono. Froslass is kind of interesting. Or no, not Froslass. Frostmoth. I always get these two Pokemon mixed up as well, so this is going to be a big mess here. But yeah, Froslass paired with the Frostmoth there is going to be kind of interesting to do pretty decent damage. Also, you do, of course, have the Froslass from Twilight Masquerade, putting damage counters on Pokemon to potentially get you 2 damage numbers you're looking to hit. Like, say, one-shotting Gardevoir EX with just one Froslass, regular Froslass, not regular Froslass EX in play. If you hit your opponent with an Iono 2-6. Obviously, if they've taken prizes, it's not as good, but also you're still disrupting them. Yeah, you need to find this like weird balance there. In terms of just in general, this is like decently strong in terms of 1 energy attackers. It's not absurdly strong, but it's hitting like I'd say maybe like 200 damage, which is actually pretty good. Obviously, if your opponent plays down their hand, which they can often do, I guess. I don't know. Kind of depends on the situation, but there's a bunch of decks that can play down their hand pretty easily. But in them doing this, they are like burning resources, which is still a way that you're pressuring their resources. Which could be useful. That being said, again, you are a 3-prizer, so if you're just pressuring your resources by like playing a Pokemon and forcing your opponent to take actions to deal with it and to like counter it, they can still do that and be like in an okay position because if they knock out 2 of these, they win. So there are some really cool things that this card does. I think it might just be a pretty simple 1 energy attacking option. I do expect it to see some play. It definitely seems like one of the better megas we've seen so far. To be honest, I've said the same thing about pretty much all the 1 energy megas that are just like decently powerful attacking options that are stage 1s, which would be Mega Camera from Mega Lopunny EX. And yeah, I mean, Mega Lopunny EX, it just came out. It's like, wait, are the decks in Limitless? When I checked yesterday, they weren't, but I think they are now. No, they are not. The cards are, but the decks aren't. Regardless, Mega Lopunny I think is like decent. Mega Camera Up certainly has not been particularly good. It's been bad. I will say people haven't really tried it out like in tournaments from what I've seen, but it isn't. It's not super spectacular. This also is kind of similar in that it requires some setup. Your opponent kind of has control over it. Your opponent can kind of counter it, but can't always counter it, right? So definitely an interesting card here. I think it's one of the better megas we've seen. It's not absurd, but it's decent, kind of on the same turn we've seen a lot of the different megas here. I don't think it fits very well within Marnie's. You could theoretically consider that because Froslass obviously is there. If you're looking at a Froslass box style deck, Mega Froslass EX I think is a card you consider. Like you can play Luminous and then you can just attach it to the Mega Froslass and then you can be swinging for theoretically big damage or pressing your opponent's resources in interesting ways. And pairing it with Badoo could also be good. Obviously Badoo's good in general, but it's quite good with the Froslass and Megidori combo. And then yeah, you'll just be able to have a cool little option there. Absolute Snow, I think, is an attack you're essentially never going to be using because it's just kind of bad. But overall, these new card reveals, in my opinion, are pretty interesting. I'm excited to see the rest of the set. They're not like crazy good cards. The Supporter is really, really funny, but unfortunately quite bad. But overall, I'm really excited for, all the new cards. Obviously, there are also new cards from Phantasmal Flames. And I'm super excited for that as well. I've been playing with some of them. Make sure you subscribe, though, so you don't miss the rest of those. But I hope you enjoyed. Make sure you like, subscribe. As I said, hit the bell, all that good stuff. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.